Jermaine, this year's recipient of the Shield Award is someone we both know extremely well because he was the co-founder of the AdHoc Group Against Crime in 1977. He's someone that I hold very dear to my heart because he helped my family. In 1996, my brother was the victim of a homicide, an accident while he was away at school. And my mother and I, we turned to the AdHoc Group Against Crime for healing and grief support, but we turned to Alvin Sykes for justice and truth to understand what happened to my 17-year-old brother. And he helped us a great deal. Alvin Sykes, he is a seeker of truth and justice, and history has been rewritten because of his tenacity. His perseverance is outstanding, and it's just because that every day he gets up to do the right thing. You're going to be in awe of this incredible man's journey. But I want to share a couple things with you before you watch the video. After Mr. Alvin Sykes fought successfully for justice when the upcoming musician Steve Harvey was murdered in Penn Valley Park here in Kansas City, Alvin Sykes turned to fight to get the Emmett Till Unsolved Civil Rights Crime Act of 2007 passed in Congress. Jermaine, we have a very, very special guest with us, and I want to introduce him to our audience. You see, 60 years ago, in 1955, when Emmett Till traveled to Money, Mississippi, he went there to visit his relatives, and he traveled there with his cousin, Wheeler Parker. Wheeler Parker was 16 years old. Emmett Till was 14 years old. Emmett, he didn't come home, but Wheeler Parker, he did. And now the Reverend Wheeler Parker came to Kansas City today to honor his cousin's memory. Reverend Parker, would you please join us on the stage? And I know he came all the way from Chicago, Illinois, and he wants to share a few words about our Community Guardian Shield Award recipient, Alvin Sykes. Reverend Parker, God bless you.
Gail has given me my marching orders. For some reason, she, through experience, or heard that it's dangerous to give a preacher a mic. And she reluctantly let me know that I have 2 minutes. So Gail, thank you. I came from Chicago, and it's a great pleasure to come here and to be with Alvin. He's one of a kind, and I really thank God for him. Watching him, I'm a lot smarter today than I was when I met him. Alvin has been a blessing to the Till family. And in the Bible it says, give honor to whom honor is due. Also, there's old saying that says, the greatness of a man is not known by the things he achieves, but by the obstacles that he overcomes. That's Alvin. Emmett Till and I traveled to Mississippi 60 years ago. And you know, while we were there, they came into the room where I was first, and they went around and kidnapped Emmett. But from 1955 to 1985, we were never interviewed or asked anything about what happened, yet stories were written. Stories were told what happened at the store and at the house. And Miss Till, those years, she wanted the case reopened. 50 years. Alvin heard that she wanted to open, and the fire jumped in his belly. We all have callings, and I wish that everyone would just abide in their calling and be as tenacious as Alvin Sykes. He heard about it December 2002, gave me a call, came to Chicago and met Miss Till. In less than a month, she was dead. On the phone, they talked, and they got it started, and Alvin went to work. He had done work here in Kansas City, and he knew people. He wasn't afraid. And what amazed me is that with the educational level he had, and the calling is in you. Alvin went about his business, contacting Senator Dodd, and he's talking about all these people. I said, yeah, well, let me see what's going to happen with this. I'm watching Alvin and traveling with him, going to see Eric Holder, and I think Eric Holder said it best when he saw Alvin. He said, a legend in his own time. So Alvin was instrumental in getting the case open. He did more in 2 years than the rest of the country did in 50 years. I think he did deserve applause for that. We're all called to serve humanity. I think we forget our reason on earth, and we all have a purpose in our life. And Alvin and his good friend Don Berger, who's no longer with us, they answered that calling within. What they did, they had to do, money was not an object, otherwise he would have quit. Alvin, you still don't have no money. But somewhere in the Bible said life does not consist in the abundance of things you possess. It has nothing to do with happiness and enjoying. Of course it helps, but it really doesn't solve the problem. You went to the Justice Department and you helped get the Teal bill passed, got the case reopened, and now you're pursuing getting it extended in a larger, helping more people. Alvin serves unselfishly, has no ulterior motive. It kind of reminds me of a story of a gentleman in the community. Alvin loved his friends. He loved his enemies. That's remarkable. When you know people don't like a guy, and he loves them, I think you miss your calling. You got to come to the church and help me with the people in the church. Remind me of and I'm through, remind me of a gentleman in the community. He wouldn't say anything bad about anybody. They said, we're going to get him today. We're going to fix him up today. We're going to ask some questions. I said, well, brother, say, what about the devil? You know you're going to say something bad about him. He said, well, he on his job. Alvin stay on the job.
Now, I have to say this because Reverend Parker came all this way today from Chicago, and his flight almost got delayed, and he paid his way. We couldn't get him in the video that you're getting ready to see, but he paid his way so that he could come and say those very powerful words. And the thing about it that's more important that I think is that even now, as we sit here in this room 60 years later, we have events that are happening in Ferguson, Missouri, our recent events of our brothers and sisters in Baltimore and New York, and things that are happening across this country, and we're still fighting the same fight. And so it's important tonight as we look at this video and we think about the work that Alvin Sykes, who sometimes gets confused as Alvin Brooks, it's important that we look and we reflect and thank this gentleman for his hard work. So let's turn the lights down and look at the video and learn a little bit more about Alvin Sykes.
I'm Crosby Kemper. I'm the director of the Kansas City Public Library. And I first met Alvin in the stacks of the Kansas City Public Library, where Alvin has spent a good part of his life.
When I was 10, it was right around 10, there were these people that lived across the street. And Mama had said, stay away from them, they bad people. But they had candy. And so that kind of outweighed the warnings. The man and the woman sexually assaulted me. But that was my real wake-up call that there needs to be people in between law enforcement and the community that can help people make the right decisions and get to the right people.
He's been like my biggest supporter. He's just been there. He taught me how to drive. He took me to get my license. He went through things that no child should have to go through. But somehow it didn't define who he is.
It took me maybe 2 or 3 years after I met him to find out that Alvin was not a trained attorney, that Alvin hadn't gone to law school, that Alvin hadn't finished high school.
Alvin Sykes has an 8th grade education. Never got through high school, never went to college. But he will tell you that his education was in the Kansas City, Kansas and Kansas City, Missouri public libraries.
I had to be somewhere because Aunt Jolene wasn't going to let you be at her house during the day. And you had to be going to school, or you had to be working, or you couldn't live there. So the library provided both purposes.
Alvin was managing his group, Threatening Weather, and it was a really hot group in our time. It was a really hot group in our time, and Sykes 20 did a lot of community events in the park and things, and Threatening Weather was one of the groups that would come and work and support with us. And I got to know him, and once he began getting around Sykes 20 people, and he just saw that seemed to kind of fit where he was.
That helped me in terms of my activism to realize that you can make concrete types of changes.
Steve Harvey was a young musician who was brutally murdered in Kansas City, and the perpetrators of the crime were set free. And Alvin made it his job, his business, his life to bring those people to justice.
The library's always been my great equalizer, so I just knew, go down the library and start looking. There was this statute called Federally Protected Activity Statute, and the first words were, whether or not under color of law. I knew immediately that the only option, if there was one, would be with the Civil Rights Division, and I already had the number memorized. I had to look up nothing. I just got on the phone and called them. Y'all are the justice, show me justice. As I explained to him the facts of the case, he stopped me when we got to the part about the park, and he said, well, send me everything you got. April 15, 1983, Bledsoe became only the 4th successful prosecution in the country under the Civil Rights Act of 1968. May 6th was when he was sentenced of 83 for that crime. He is still in prison, and he is now has a distinction of being the longest serving inmate in the United States of America now, still serving time for a civil rights conviction.
Alvin made the Emmett Till case his cause, not just the Emmett Till case, but what it represented, which was cold case hate crimes where the perpetrators were never brought to justice.
I've seen some times when Alvin has worked with some people and they felt that the things that he should do should always be done on the side that they see it. But Alvin has always taken things that I'm working for justice, guys, and if it doesn't fit where you are, then you have to look out.
By the time that we went to meet with Emmett's mother, I already had a sense that this was going to be investigated.
They didn't indict the people, and it seemed to me that that would have been a crushing blow when they weren't indicted. And Alvin's response was, we seek justice. These people face justice. The system worked.
We took a group of teenagers from the Kansas City Public Library, about 75 teens, to Jefferson City to protest in a polite way in the Capitol building the defunding of libraries.
The library! Yeah! We use the library for knowledge. We use our books.
They threw us out of the governor's office, and Alvin was with us. And typical of Alvin, he was completely unfazed by this.
We are here for a victory. We are here to get this money restored. We are here to make the library's most important.
Alvin's short speech, his little speech to the teens really impressed them. It turned them from being disappointed and angry about being thrown out and wanting to do something a little more extreme, etc., to being focused on using social media and going after it and fighting the good fight.
What I told them is that most of my victories started with a no, and it has.
Somebody said to me, could you move the Rock of Gibraltar about 2 feet? I know who I'd call.
He is an example of what the average person who has an extraordinary dream and extraordinary capacity to work can get done.
In the cause of achieving justice in the case of the crimes committed against my father, Steve L. Harvey, Alvin Sykes played a critical and pivotal role, without which it is doubtful that any measure of justice could have been achieved. Thank you, Alvin, for choosing to take on the responsibility of caring for others. The entire human family is enriched by the everlasting impact of your good works.
Alvin Sykes is certainly one who is deserving of the Shield Award because of the work that he's done in the field of civil rights.
It's very deserving. You've done some awesome work, so you truly deserve it. But most importantly, just thank you for being there for me. I'm very proud of you.
I'm gonna go ahead and do it. The Spirit's telling me. Me and Alvin didn't always see eye to eye. And it was, and at one point in time, I left AdHoc. As I matured in my advocacy, I realized that it is important to have people on the inside, it's important to have people on the outside, and it's important to have people as a bridge between the two. I'm just so honored to know him and have learned from him. But what this represents is a coming back home.